So, you went out and bought yourself a fighting game that everyone likes. You spent around $40 to $60 for it and you wanted to give it a try. 30 minutes later, you found out what all the buttons do, you beat the story mode with your favorite character, and you're sitting on a game that cost you about 40 candy bars that has you bored now. Except there's one little thing that you can do. One little icon that says go online into battle. 12 minutes into that, you realize that everyone you come across completely destroys you in battle as though you were a toddler going against a professional. If this instance didn't immediately make you wonder why you got beat so badly by them, then this game probably has one of two values towards you. One is the game probably isn't worth your time of day, and you've opted to take it back to the store where you got it from. 2, you've decided to play the game occasionally, sometimes beating it with a new character, or playing with friends whenever they're over. If you're either of these two, more importantly the first one, then you probably don't see the appeal in fighting games that others do. It probably baffles you that hundreds of thousands of people would watch 2 people play these games in a tournament as though it's a Super Bowl. Quick question to anyone who's not a fan of fighting games but has at least played some of them. What would you compare a game of Street Fighter to most? A game of Rock'em Sock'em Robots or a game of chess? Well, if you said Rock'em Sock'em Robots, then congratulations, you've outed yourself as someone who has never really gotten into a fighting game seriously. While Rock'em Sock'em has 2 people playing against a very obvious goal, trying to knock each other's heads off. Just like a fighting game, chess actually fits the goal of this game much more concisely. In a real game of Rock'em Sock'em, the player that can tap the buttons fast enough to knock their opponent's head off would win. Whereas in a game of chess, the player that moves the fastest and has the best pieces doesn't always win. A great player of chess knows that all it takes for you to win is to have a good strategy. Predicting your opponent and adapting to the way they play is an optimal way of defeating them, rather than actually going in with brute force. Much in this way, many fighting games are in the same way. Simply attacking your opponent and trying to defeat them just by wailing on them isn't enough to defeat them in most circumstances. As a matter of fact, even the most strongest character in their respective game isn't the best in a balanced game. I'm using the word balanced here loosely since you can't exactly make a fighting game that's 100% balanced. This is why tier lists exist. Let's use an example from Super Smash Bros. 4. While admittedly this isn't the best representation for the genre of fighting games for many people, it does serve a perfect example. The strongest move in the game, which doesn't require charging, is a reverse Warlock Punch from Ganondorf. Despite this being true, Ganon is consistently placed at the bottom of many respectable tier lists from many players. Why is this? Well, it's a slow attack. He himself is a slow attacker. It's not to say that speed is everything, but when it comes to countering your opponent and what he does, it doesn't help that you're so slow that you can't actually attack. The strategic best use of each character is the one that has the best options for dealing with anything that happens. While you might think going in and pummeling your opponent to the ground might be the best strategy for most problems presented in other games, doing so in a fighting game would yield very different results. Your opponent in a fighting game is not an AI that uses an attack over and over again with the occasional switch up. You'll often go against an opponent that uses a strategy that keeps you unable to attack, or at the very least keep you from doing significant damage, if at all prevents you from landing anything. One of my favorite representations from this genre is Super Punch-Up for the Super Nintendo, which, while it doesn't actually force you to play against other players, or even have the option for it, it throws you into a game with an AI that attempts to pummel you down. You, as the player, don't have the luxury of doing the same thing back, however. In fact, attempting to do so usually puts you at the disadvantage. The thing that makes this game so unique as a fighter is you have to keep getting into your opponent's head in order to defeat him. There's no special way of playing the game that will actually get you any farther than the first opponent. The only way you can even do damage to your opponent is by predicting what he's going to do next, in either dodging, blocking, or countering. So long as you can tell what the opponent is going to do next, you can easily take down your opponent. Though there is no way to pummel your opponent down to the ground, there are specific ways to defeat each and every opponent without ever getting hit. This blends in perfectly with a fighting game with balanced combat. Your opponent may have its own free will, and may not have its own specific rules set to follow, but it is true that he may follow a certain pattern. It's your job as the challenger to predict your opponent's reactions to your own attacks in order for you to come out triumphant and take as little damage as possible. Even in real-life martial arts and boxing, the most important part of fighting is getting into your opponent's head. Control your opponent and you control the battle. Even Bruce Lee proved that the biggest and strongest were no match for those who trained hard enough to not only react to their opponents, but were able to counter them efficiently. Though I guess it would really help to know yourself as well as the opponent. And by yourself I really mean using the character that you know to the best of your ability. Knowing the ins and outs of what your character can do can help out in any situation. That's a totally different topic for an entirely different subject completely. The whole art of fighting games actually runs pretty deep. Much more deep than simply trying to defeat your opponent by attacking him to death. In any case, I hope you found this video entertaining enough in any way. I humbly appreciate you watching it to the end. Leave a like if you found this interesting at all, or consider subscribing if you haven't. I'm considering uploading a lot more content like this in the future, so if you liked it, there'd certainly be more in the future. Thanks again for watching.